He walked into the courtroom wearing a vest designed to keep him alive long enough to face what came next. Nick Reiner, 32 years old, shackled, silent, stripped of shoelaces, belts, anything that could be turned inward against himself. The vest spoke before he did. Thick, tear-resistant fabric, no zippers, no drawstrings, no choices. Standard issue for inmates the system believes might not survive the shock of accusation. He stood accused of 2 counts of first-degree murder, special circumstances, multiple victims, a deadly weapon allegation tied to a knife. Words that translate into a single outcome: life without parole. Decades measured in concrete, steel, and routine. But the vest suggested something more urgent. It suggested the system was not convinced he would live long enough to see a jury. The judge ordered him held without bail. No temporary release. No return to anything familiar. His arraignment was scheduled for January 7, 2026, weeks away. Every day until then accounted for, monitored, observed. He waived his right to a speedy arraignment. His attorney stood beside him, saying little. The courtroom watched in silence. This moment was not about guilt or innocence. That would come later. This was about endurance. Survival measured in nights, not sentences. What happens when someone accused of killing both parents is left alone after the doors lock and the cameras remain? The vest was the system's answer. Precaution, prediction, an admission that the weight of what follows can break a person before justice ever begins. Nick Reiner left the courtroom the same way he entered, restrained, watched, wearing the uniform of someone the state believes might not wait for a verdict. To understand how he arrived here, we have to go back to the beginning of this story. The call came from a quiet residential street in Brentwood, Los Angeles, a neighborhood known for privacy, security, and distance from the chaos most people associate with violent crime. Inside the home, 2 bodies were discovered. Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner were pronounced dead at the scene. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner later confirmed both victims suffered multiple sharp force injuries. The weapon was identified as a knife. The manner of death was ruled homicide. Not an accident. Not natural causes. Homicide. Rob Reiner was 77 years old. A filmmaker whose career shaped generations of American cinema. A director whose work became cultural reference points. Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, The Princess Bride. Before directing, he was an actor, known to millions as Michael Stivic on All in the Family. A recognizable face, a familiar voice. Michelle Singer Reiner was his wife. A photographer, a philanthropist. They had been married for more than 3 decades. Their home was not known to police. No history of disturbances. No prior calls. No public record of domestic conflict. The scene offered no immediate explanation. Only outcome. Investigators moved quickly. Within hours, authorities identified a suspect. Nick Reiner, their son, was taken into custody the same day his parents were found. Surveillance footage placed him at a nearby gas station shortly before police arrived at the home. The footage circulated rapidly. A man in casual clothing, unremarkable, buying items, standing in line, moving through the space like anyone else. No visible distress, no visible urgency. Then came the arrest. No chase, no resistance, just handcuffs, a patrol vehicle, and the beginning of a legal process that would immediately narrow his future. The timeline was compressed. Discovery, arrest, charges, all within a matter of hours. Prosecutors filed 2 counts of first-degree murder, a special circumstance allegation for multiple victims, a deadly weapon enhancement involving a knife, language that carries specific meaning in California law, language designed to close doors. The charges alone signal prosecutorial confidence. They reflect a belief that the evidence will withstand scrutiny. They also dictate how the system treats the accused from the first moment of custody. The Brentwood home became a secured crime scene. Evidence technicians documented every room. Photographs, measurements, collection of physical material. The surveillance footage became part of the case file. Nick Reiner became the sole defendant in a double homicide investigation that would attract national attention. Within hours of the arrest, he was transported to a Los Angeles County jail facility, held without bail, pending arraignment, for words that define his existence until January 7th. No temporary release, no return home, no preparation from the outside. The Los Angeles County jail system processes thousands of inmates every day. It operates on procedure. Intake begins immediately. Fingerprints, photographs, personal property removed, cataloged, stored, clothing exchanged for jail-issued garments. The transformation is methodical. Each step removes autonomy. Medical screening follows. Questions about physical health, medications, allergies. Then comes the mental health evaluation. For defendants facing severe charges, this stage carries weight. The assessment looks for indicators: prior treatment, history of self-harm, current mental state, support systems, substance use. The answers influence classification. Defendants accused of killing immediate family members are treated differently. The combination of high-profile status, severe allegations, and psychological strain elevates risk. Administrative segregation becomes likely. Separation from the general population. Limited movement. Restricted interaction. The special circumstance allegation reinforces that classification. Although California no longer carries out executions, the legal framework tied to capital cases still exists. It influences custody decisions. Suicide prevention protocols are standard for charges of this magnitude. The vest Nick Reiner wore in court reflects that determination. It is not symbolic. It is procedural. It governs daily life. Lockdown is common. 23 hours in a cell. 1 hour for basic movement. No group activities. No communal meals. Contact with others is limited to necessity. Legal visits. Occasional family contact if approved. Media attention complicates everything. Association becomes risky. Friends distance themselves. Silence replaces conversation. Attorneys become the primary human presence. The cell itself reinforces isolation. A narrow space, a metal toilet, a thin mattress, walls close enough to touch, lights that never fully dim, the constant sound of ventilation, the absence of privacy. No bail means no escape. Not temporarily. Not conditionally. Other defendants may wait at home. Nick Reiner does not. Every meeting with counsel happens under supervision. Every document reviewed inside a controlled room. The system treats him as high risk, not because guilt has been proven, because the charges require it. The machinery continues, processes, it contains. Physical confinement is only the surface. The psychological impact begins immediately. The vest Nick Reiner wore is standard issue for inmates assessed as suicide risks. Thick, quilted, tear-resistant, designed without features that could be repurposed. No strings, no fasteners, no options. The decision to issue suicide prevention clothing follows evaluation by mental health professionals. It is based on risk indicators. Pre-trial defendants facing murder charges experience elevated rates of self-harm. The first 72 hours are the most dangerous. Court appearances increase risk. Sudden loss of freedom, public exposure, the collapse of identity. For someone accused of killing both parents, the burden compounds. Observation protocols intensify. Checks occur at frequent intervals. Privacy disappears. Sleep happens under watch. Meals are consumed within view. Even basic bodily functions occur under surveillance. Personal items are restricted. Shoelaces removed. Belts prohibited. Sheets monitored. Writing instruments controlled. Utensils counted. The cell itself is modified. Rounded edges. Reinforced fixtures. Nothing that can be weaponized. This is how the system responds when it believes someone may not survive their own thoughts. Time changes shape in custody. Days lose distinction. The only markers are routine. Meals, medication, counts, checks. Human interaction becomes transactional. Commands, compliance, Brief exchanges through food slots. The vest becomes visible. Other inmates notice. Staff adjust behavior. Attorneys recognize the signal immediately. Communicates vulnerability without words. Prediction made physical. The system acknowledging risk. Yet there is an unresolved tension. Nick Reiner is accused of killing 2 people. If the allegations are true, he ended 2 lives. Now the same system prosecuting him is working to keep him alive. Taxpayer-funded observation. Mental health staff monitoring his condition. Protocols designed to prevent self-harm applied to someone accused of irreversible harm. The question lingers. Is this mercy? Is it due process? Or is it another form of punishment? Forcing endurance. The vest does not answer. It only delays outcome. While Nick Reiner remains under observation, prosecutors continue building their case. Surveillance footage forms part of the evidentiary foundation. A gas station, security cameras, timestamps, movements, establishing presence, establishing sequence. The footage has been reviewed repeatedly. It offers context, not motive. The medical examiner's findings are central. Multiple sharp force injuries, a knife, homicide. The charges reflect prosecutorial assessment. 2 counts of first-degree murder, special circumstance, deadly weapon enhancement. Each carries consequences. The special circumstance allegation elevates the case. It removes sentencing flexibility. It signals intent to pursue life without parole. The deadly weapon enhancement adds years. It establishes deliberateness. Together, they form a framework designed to ensure permanent confinement if conviction occurs. The arraignment scheduled for January 7th is procedural. Charges read. Plea entered. Almost certainly not guilty. That triggers discovery. Prosecutors must disclose evidence. Reports. Forensic analysis. Witness statements. Autopsy results. Surveillance footage. Defense attorneys will receive extensive material. They will review, analyze, challenge. Motions will follow. Suppression hearings. Admissibility arguments. Jury selection. Murder trials move slowly. 12 to 24 months is typical. During that time, Nick Reiner remains in custody, watching the process unfold from a cell. Waiting becomes the challenge. Is this justice? Or is it pre-punishment? The system does not pause. It advances according to statute and precedent. Public attention intensifies. Speculation fills gaps. Questions remain unanswered. In 2015, Nick Reiner co-wrote a film with his father, Being Charlie. The story followed a young man struggling with addiction, cycling through treatment, navigating a complicated relationship with his father. The film drew from personal experience. Nick had spoken publicly about addiction and recovery. Interviews from that period show collaboration. Father and son working together, turning struggle into narrative. Rob Reiner directed. Nick wrote. The project was personal. It explored relapse, recovery, family expectations. It offered no simple resolution. Critics described it as raw, honest, testimonial. That documented relationship exists. There is no public record of violence between Nick and his parents. No prior criminal charges. No documented escalation. The biographical facts do not explain the allegations. They are not motive. They are context. A record of what came before. A father and son creating art about survival. Now one is dead. The other accused of killing him. The contrast stands without commentary. The existence of that earlier collaboration complicates public perception. Being Charlie remains available. Interviews remain archived. The story they told about addiction and recovery has not changed, but its meaning is altered by what followed. A narrative about survival now sits beside allegations of violence. The shadow is unavoidable. A film about a son trying to stay alive. A father trying to help. Years later, a courtroom. A suicide prevention vest. Charges of double murder. The juxtaposition requires no explanation. It speaks through contrast. As the legal process moves forward, one element remains absent: motive. Investigators have not publicly identified a reason. No manifesto. No documented conflict in the weeks leading up to the deaths. No clear trigger released to the public. Silence fills the space where explanation might exist. That absence fuels speculation. It also intensifies psychological strain. Waiting without answers. Existing under accusation without narrative. Nick Reiner remains in the same environment. Concrete walls, fluorescent light, constant observation. The vest remains part of daily life. A reminder of risk. A reminder of vulnerability. The system designed to preserve life may also erode it. Pre-trial detention raises fundamental questions. Holding someone under these conditions before conviction. Is it necessary? Is it protective? Or is it punitive? The law permits it. The charges justify it. The system prioritizes process. Individual experience becomes secondary. The machinery continues. It does not evaluate emotional cost. It enforces protocol. For Nick Reiner, the immediate challenge is survival. Not legal strategy. Not public perception. Endurance. Each day until January 7th. Each night under observation. Each moment measured by checks and routines. The public watches from a distance. Media coverage cycles. Details repeated. Speculation amplified. The victims remain central. 2 lives lost. Family destroyed. No legal outcome can restore what was taken. The trial will determine guilt or innocence. It will not answer every question. It will not provide motive if none emerges. It will assign responsibility under law. That is its function. Meanwhile, the human cost accumulates quietly. In a cell. Under fluorescent light. Inside a vest designed to prevent final decisions. The arraignment will mark a formal beginning. Plea entered. Process engaged. Discovery exchanged. Motions filed. Months will pass. Years possibly. The outcome will shape the remainder of Nick Reiner's life. Life without parole if convicted. Permanent confinement. Or acquittal. Release. Unlikely outcomes coexist until verdict. Until then, existence is suspended. The system demands patience. It demands compliance. It demands survival. This case sits at the intersection of crime, family, and mental health. It challenges assumptions. About motive. About justice. About protection. The system's response reflects caution. It reflects fear of irreversible outcomes before adjudication. It also reflects indifference to suffering as long as procedure is followed. The vest remains the most visible symbol, not of guilt, not of innocence, of risk, of uncertainty, of a system acknowledging that accusation alone can be lethal. Nick Reiner waits. The public waits. The court waits. Time advances regardless. Each day brings no answers, only continuation. The question is not when the trial will begin. It is whether the system designed to deliver justice can preserve the humanity of those inside it long enough to reach that point. The answer remains unknown. The process continues. The vest remains. The lights stay on. And the waiting endures. What do you think happens when someone accused of the unthinkable is left alone with the consequences of what lies ahead? Subscribe for updates as this case continues to unfold. We'll follow the facts as they surface. The filings, the hearings, the motions, and the trial when it finally arrives. Share your thoughts in the comments. Is holding someone before conviction protection or punishment in disguise? Where should the line exist between public safety and presuming guilt too early? If you want more in-depth examinations of high-profile cases that explore crime, justice, and the cost of the legal system, tap the like button. January 7th, 2026. The arraignment, the plea, and the start of a process that will decide whether Nick Reiner ever leaves custody, or whether the rest of his life is measured there.